Yeah, man! Hello, my name is Miguel, and today I'm gonna make for you asparagus tomato stew. So you're gonna need some asparagus, 3 between 6, as many as you want. 6 plummy tomatoes, 6 small tomatoes. Visit JamaicaDinners.com for the recipe. Stalk of scallion, 1 small carrot, tablespoon of wine vinegar, but to be honest you can use apple cider or distilled white vinegar instead. A teaspoon of salt, I use sea salt. 1 tablespoon parsley, you can use any of these herbs fresh, chop it fine. A tablespoon of dried basil. Teaspoon of oregano. Teaspoon of marjoram. 2 between 3, 4, 5 whole cloves. Dried pimento berries, about 1/4 teaspoon of dried pimento berries. It's optional, you can use peppercorn instead. A teaspoon of grinded fine rosemary. 3 between 4 or 5 garlic cloves or 5 garlic cloves. A small onion. Half scotch bonnet pepper. You can use 1/4 teaspoon of shredded red pepper instead. Start by gathering herbs together. Measure and put in one place a tablespoon dried parsley. Add a tablespoon dried basil. You can use any of these herbs fresh. Chop it fine though. This recipe will be in Vegan Dinners Cookbook. A teaspoon of oregano. Marjoram, 1 teaspoon marjoram, teaspoon of rosemary. Grind rosemary fine. Be sure the rosemary leaves are grinded fine. You don't do as me, use a grinder, or you can buy it in the supermarket, grind it fine. Measure and put aside a teaspoon of salt. I use sea salt. Put your herbs aside for later. Today I'm going to show you how to maximize flavors from the spices, old clove, dried pimento berries. Some people call it allspice. Be sure the saucepan is dry. I'm going to show you how to maximize flavor from these spices without having them in the food. Put the stove gauge on low, almost off low. Add 4 tablespoons of cooking oil. I use coconut oil, you can use olive oil instead. Add it into the saucepan. After that, add the spices. Whole cloves, about 3, 4, 5 pieces of whole cloves. 1/4 teaspoon of dried pimento berries or peppercorn in the eating oil. By keeping the stove on low, it minimizes risk of the berries bursting and hurting you. Allow oil to flavor. Next, peel garlic cloves. Cut off ends, trim spoilage. This recipe will be in Vegan Dinners Cookbook. When you purchase this cookbook, take time out, leave a comment. Give me a 5-star because I deserve it. Peel onion. What I like to do is cut the onion in half. It's easier to handle. The first layer of the onion is the strongest. Peel the brown leaf. Only remove the layer of the onion if it's spoiled. The carrot now. What I like to do is scrape the surface of the carrot clean. Scrape the surface of the carrot clean. If you're against scraping the carrot, wash it under fresh running water clean. Scrub it clean. Now, scallion. Remove the dying leaves from the scallion. Cut off the root end and the tip of the leaf that's dying. Now we're going to wash our vegetables clean. So I put them all in a bowl. Add enough water. Drizzle several drops of distilled white vinegar into the water. Use your fingers. Wash vegetables clean. Rub the skin of the tomato clean. Give each vegetable a final rinse. It's best if you do this part under fresh running water. Use your fingers and rub the scallions leaf clean. Give it a final rinse and put your vegetables in a colander to drain excess water. Alright, throw that water off. Throw in some fresh water in the bowl. Add your asparagus. Drizzle several drops of distilled white vinegar into the bowl with the water and wash the asparagus clean. After that, give asparagus final rinse with fresh water. It's best if you do this part under fresh running water. Now we're going to dice and slice. Starting with the garlic. Grind garlic to puree. Slice or dice onion. Put the asparagus on this plate. Keep ingredients separate. Now, dice scallion fine. You can use chive instead. Some people call scallion green onion. Alright, gather these vegetables, put them aside for later. Now, cut carrot wheels. You can cut carrot sticks. You can cut carrot sticks if that's what you desire. Keep the carrot separate. Add the carrot in a separate container. Keep it separate from the other ingredients. Now, cut stem part off tomatoes. Cut the tomatoes stem part off. Next, dice tomatoes. Just cut that one small tomato in 1/8. You cut it in half, then cut each half piece in half, and then cut each of the four half pieces in half. So that's 8 pieces, 1/8. The riper the tomato, the better it is. While you're cutting, look for spoilage, look for worm. Keep the tomatoes separate from the other ingredients. Be sure the tomato is ripe. The riper the tomato, the better it is. Cover your containers, put them aside for later. Alright, this is our spices. Flavor in the oil. The stove gauge is on low, that's how low you want it. It's been about 15 minutes now. Turn the stove off. Now would be a good time to remove the berries. Get a cooking spoon with a filter, like an oil filter. Remove the spices from the eating oil. So once you do that, turn the stove back on. Put the stove gauge on 4. That's medium low. oil should be hot. You don't need to allow it to get hot. It should be kind of hot right now. So add your diced or sliced onions. Stir it in a few times. Allow it to saute light golden brown around the edges. After 40 seconds between a minute, add your diced scallion. Stir it in. Allow to saute. "40 seconds between a minute, add mashed garlic. Stir it in, allow to saute. Look, asparagus can be eaten raw, so you don't need to cook the asparagus. If say you want it to be steamed a little, all you need to do is just add it at the end when you're finished. Use the pan's lid and cover the pan until served. Or you can lay it on a plate and then pour the sauce on top. After a minute between two and the seasonings are sauteed somewhat, add your chopped tomatoes. Stir it in, allow it to stay for 2 minutes with the stove's gauge on 4, medium-low, lid off. Alright, allow. After 2 minutes, I didn't move it, I just allowed it to simmer for 2 minutes. This is what it looks like. Stir it in a few times. Flip the bottom to the top. After that, add your herbs, the salt, stir it in. Next, add ½ cup water. Stir it in. Measure and add a tablespoon of wine vinegar. You can use apple cider or distilled white vinegar instead. Add the pepper. Put the pepper on top. You can use 1/4 teaspoon of shredded red pepper instead. Use the pan's lid. Cover the pan properly. The stove gauge is on 4, medium-low. Allow. Keep it covered within the time. Don't open it every minute. Keep the lid on. I can smell the herbs cooking with the tomatoes. After 5 minutes, this is what it looks like. Give your pot a 1 stir just to see what's going on. We're on the right track. Put the lid back on. Cover it properly and allow. See, look, asparagus can be eaten raw. Make sure when you go to the market, get fresh asparagus that you can pop it just like this. It can be eaten raw. You don't really need to cook. Oh yes, and before I forget, to do this meal, you can cut the asparagus in small little pieces. That way you don't have to bite the big asparagus. But for presentation purpose, I'm going to keep the asparagus in one piece. When you're doing this meal, dice the asparagus. Fine. 10 minutes now. We're coming to an end. Add your diced asparagus, your diced or sliced carrot wheels or carrot stick. Once the stew starts sticking to the pot's bottom, that's a sign to say it's thick enough and it's ready. That's it, finish. So now you can add the asparagus if you so desire and allow it to steam a little bit. Cover the pan until serving. So do what I'm doing. Just lay a few asparagus on a plate for serving. Take a scoop of this delicious looking asparagus tomato stew and just pour it over your fresh asparagus. And that's it. You can have this meal with rolls, or you can eat it by itself. This is Asparagus Tomato Stew. Visit JamaicaDinners.com for the recipe. Subscribe, like, share. You should try cooking this asparagus tomato stew yourself. Give us feedback when you do. Take a scoop of this delicious asparagus tomato stew and lay it on a plate of spaghetti, on a plate of pasta. You can use any pasta. This is where it would be good if you just dice the asparagus and put it in the tomato stew and just pour everything over the spaghetti. But like I said, I'm doing this for presentation purpose, so that people can know this is an asparagus meal. This is an asparagus cuisine. This is asparagus tomato stew. This recipe is in Vegan Dinners Cookbook. Asparagus tomato stew. Isn't it pretty? One thing though, when you cook vegetables always look pretty. Right, so the sauce, this is homemade tomato sauce, in so many ways. It's a little bit spicy. You see the pepper? I was looking for it, but it got lost in the stew. Now I'm removing it. The tomato stew is tangy and delicious. I like eating this asparagus tomato stew with spaghetti. You can also eat it with rice, or you can have it with crackers, or rolls, or bread. Even a lettuce salad would be good. You can also sprinkle vegan cheese, like cheddar cheese type thing. It would be really delicious with this meal. This asparagus tomato stew has a fresh and delicious flavor. Asparagus gives it a nice green flavor. Awesome. Thumbs up. Visit JamaicaDinners.com for the recipe. Go and get Vegan Dinners Cookbook. Although the book will have 20 chapters, in each chapter I'm going to recommend at least 5 different ways that you can cook the same recipe. So you'll be getting way more recipes for your buck. Until next time, bye. Yeah, man!